My grandfather is a Shaker reproduction woodworker. He has been, well, before he retired, but then predominantly after he retired from being a biology professor in Pipapassis, Kentucky. Behind us is his shed, and today I'm going to start learning how to turn board games into custom-made little wooden boxes for our collection.
Really for our permanent collection. We want to have a nice display of these wooden boxes that we're then going to laser cut in a future point with designs, and it'll make the collection more special and meaningful to us.
So this vlog, I don't know what it's going to be about yet, but it's mostly going to be focused on showing some of the stuff that he's made, gaining a little bit of wisdom on his woodworking skill, and also starting the process of becoming a woodworker myself, because I think it's a craft that I would love to carry on. So let's go. Let's figure out what he has to teach us. Also, there's an adorable little puppy in the back there. Now, why am I carrying Land vs. Sea? It's because it's a game that we absolutely adore. We plan on keeping in the collection, and it's a small enough box that it's a good starting point for this journey. Yeah, I believe so.
Hey.
Professor Swisher, what about you?
Hello.
I would say that I wasn't exactly sure how it would turn out. I agree with the judge that...
You've been in here before, Sheriff?
No.
No? Well, this is all hand-built.
Yeah, he made the entire workshop that he does work in.
I designed it and I made it, yeah. I had a number of guys helping me with these parts. You'd spend more for that than you would for your table saw, probably.
You'd spend more for this wood than you would for your table saw?
That's a good chance, yeah.
That's the same wood you made my table out of, though, right?
Sassafras?
The chess table?
Yeah. Or is it might be, what type of wood is it?
I'd have to see it. I don't remember. I don't remember.
So what's the, if we're taking something like this, because this is what I want to be converting into a box.
Wooden box.
What is the first things we have to start thinking about for a box?
Finding the wood we want to use.
Okay.
And that's what I'm looking for now, to see if I've got any good 1/4 inch thick wood up here. And I am kind of running low on it, I guess. This wood was already cut for making a different box, but I'm not going to make that box anymore, so you can use this 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch poplar. That's 3/8 inch.
So why is finding the wood the first part of the process?
You can't cut anything if you don't have a piece of wood.
What about measurements or anything like that? When do they come into play?
After we get to pick out what wood we want to use.
Okay.
I'm looking for some 1/4 inch thick poplar up here. This is where I stash all sorts of little bits of wood. So create that. I'm not sure you want to use this would make beautiful boxes, but it's not a wood you want to use a laser burner on.
Okay.
Because it's spalted.
Spalted means it has all those wood patches and
Spalted
holes
means the wood was dead before it was cut, and fungus started to invade it, and that's what makes all the color pattern.
Which is beautiful.
The fungus. Yeah, it makes a pretty wood.
Now we're not using a laser cutter on this first one anyway, so.
Not right now.
Yeah.
In the future.
Yeah. Well, if there's any chance you're ever going to use a laser cutter on it, I can't get that kind of wood. I had to cut that wood by myself out of the tree, and so I would never.
Jesse special wood. He doesn't deserve special wood.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't start with special wood.
Well, that's what I'm thinking too. It's not that I don't want you to use it. It's just that it may not be the time to use it.
Now, the hope is to continue coming down a few times, maybe once a month or so, to actually learn, because in this vlog, we're just going to be starting the process, and he's not convinced he can teach me much.
Oh, I can teach him some.
He can teach me some. Much is what I said, though, Grandpa.
I can teach him much. It's can he learn much is the question.
It's fair. Yeah, I think we want to basically recreate the box. So what are you doing now?
I'm just trying to check and see if this is going to be wide enough, because we're going to have to cut this board into two. You want to have a top on the box. Usually when I make a box, we can do it this way.
I'm listening.
I will cut a thin, what's called a,
Ridge?
no, I'm trying to think of the name of the joint.
Porcupine.
Porcupine joint. I don't think that would work too well.
Okay.
I don't think a quackalope would work too well either.
No.
It has to be a rabbit joint. But anyway, there's a groove cut along here that I can slip a little piece of wood in for the bottom.
That's the little piece of plywood or something that you
Right.
do for the bottom of it.
Right. And then if we do that, we can just make the top of the box right there. It'll be a little loose so that this fits down in it. You can get it back out easily. But if we make the bottom of the box only about, oops,
We can actually take all those pieces out because they're going to start dumping here soon.
yeah. If we make the bottom of the box 2 inches tall, and then we have a lid that fits on there. I'm trying to think of a way that you'd be able to easily pick this out of the box.
You just take all the pieces out and then dump the box out if you need to. Because we wouldn't take the box out ever. The only things you're taking out are the components.
Yeah.
Okay.
The box is just gonna sit.
She
in
just
there.
doesn't want to lose. She just doesn't want to throw away the box
Okay.
or have the box sit empty.
So that could fit down in tightly. I'm still thinking what kind of a top to put on it. You mentioned a sliding top.
Could be a sliding, could be a resting, could be a squeeze fit.
Well, the problem I'm thinking of now is doing hinges.
Okay.
If you have a hinge top,
I think sliding would be better because sometimes depends on how we want to store these boxes. If we want to store them flat or if we want to store them on the side. If
right?
we want to store them on the side, the sliding one, we always just make sure the slide is down so that the lid doesn't come off.
Sliding or a squeeze fit.
That's a squeeze fit.
The box is where you just press it in and it's tight enough that it stays.
You'll have an awful time getting it back out if it's
Okay.
that tight.
I don't think hinges are the best option.
Okay, that's good. Because hinges are another trick to put on. Let's learn the making of the box first, then you can learn hinges some other day.
Can you do tucked internalized hinges so that it doesn't disrupt the outside of the box? Eventually.
They still are going to show somehow. Something
Okay.
about the box.
Because what I would want is the outside of the box to be clean because we store it on shelves where we slide it in and out. So hinges would get in the way of that.
Then the sliding top, I think, is going to be the answer.
idea.
Because they're not hard to make either.
Yeah, and that's what I'm assuming, that it's a little bit more simple for someone who's learning this.
Excuse me.
Well,
Excuse you!
you want to learn the basic steps first
Before you start getting fancy.
before you start getting fancy, just like with fancy wood or with fancy joints or with fancy hinges and all that sort of stuff. You know, you can make a hinge box and you can get a little metal clip that holds it closed so it wouldn't be falling open.
I
But
hear.
still, again, you're adding another level of complexity to get all of those things lined up.
And that's also something on the outside that might like nick our shelves and
Right.
stuff when we store it. So let's start with the
Well,
box.
if the hinges were here and the latch there and you put it in that way.
It would all be on the ends.
Right.
Let's start
But
with
it's
the
still
lid
not-
that slides in
The
first.
sliding lid would be the best.
Yep. We're all in
Okay.
agreement.
So Grandpa measured to make sure that the top and bottom had room for the plywood to slide in at the bottom and in at the top, because we needed, what, a little bit of an inch there, or a little bit of a...
About a quarter of an inch overlap or extra would be good to keep the top in and the bottom in.
And the box is in 8 by 8 inches, so we're measuring to make sure that we can cut two sides from a single strip of wood now. Any other major things that we're paying attention to other than war stories about how you almost cut your fingers off?
Well, I could tell more war stories, but I'm not going to because I get tired of listening to people tell their war stories too. So I'm just going to keep measuring here. This wood is 3/8 of an inch thick, so that means we need the box to be 8 3/4 on the outside, plus probably a quarter leeway, so you have a little. You don't want it too tight, or things would get really jammed in there and stuck.
Yep.
So if I made it 9 inches each side, 9 inches, we could do it with these two pieces. Table saws make a lot of noise. If you don't use ear protection, you're going to end up having a great deal of hearing loss. That includes anybody that's sitting in the shop even. Sure.
Yep. Will Ash be okay, or should I let her out?
She won't like the noise.
Okay.
And at least I know
What's the difference in the two colors?
slightly different consistency, I think. But,
This one's
and they're all fresh. These have never been used.
What color would you like?
Any?
There you go.
He's not prejudiced against color. Okay, and another rule, if you're operating the table saw, you never turn it on until you've got on your safety glasses. Because every once in a while,
A random wood chip will
a little,
fly off.
well, the thing that got me was I was cutting something fairly hardwood, and one of isn't the one. Oh dear, I'm going to have to do something different. Oh, that's the right blade. I had a blade on there that had diamond tipped or carbide tipped teeth on it. The tips are brazed on somehow. They aren't fused. I mean, they aren't solid. One of them broke loose and hit me right about here.
Oh no.
If it had hit me right here, I'd have been blinded. So you always wear safety glasses. I don't want to turn the table saw on unless I have safety glasses, and I prefer to have these earmuffs. You're okay because you're not standing behind the blade, but it's the person that's right here by the blade that's going to be in trouble. Another thing a table saw will do every now and then is it will catch a piece of wood and throw it back. And if it throws it back towards your head, you got problems. People have been punctured by a piece of wood coming back at them. So a lot of table saw users insist on having another unit here that helps prevent that. But I can't do cross-cutting with that thing on there, so I don't have it on. There. I'm trying to get these the same size, but they might be a little bit off. I mean, it's very close. But what I'm going to do is mark the first two that I cut just with a light A. So I'll know those two go this way. The other ones, which might be a slightly different length, will be the other sides. So should work.
So the next plan is to do a box joint cut, right?
Right, and you have to have a special jig for doing that. They're all homemade jigs, but you have to have this special jig that will let you make the cut.
Now, what is a box joint cut?
Box joint cut is, let me find an example here. I've got one, well, right here. This edge is a box joint where you've got sort of like fingers that interdigitate, go together, and they have to be cut very precisely for them to fit. But it's a common joint for making boxes. This is an old box. It's got a box joint.
Tons of little box joints.
Yeah, that's only an 1/8 inch. That one is a 1/4 inch. But this is the plane I was talking about. This is an antique plane. And if anybody was a plane enthusiast, I wouldn't want them to see this because they'd be hounding me wanting to buy my antique plane. But this
Would they really?
They would.
Yeah.
There's people that collect these things and they pay hundreds of dollars for them. Especially one like this that's Complete set, it's still in the original box. A little dusty from my shop, but it's still a complete box. Those are my antique planes up there on the shelf. Okay, now I was trying to get out here the box joint jig. Oh, see, when you make the box joint, I can't use that blade. I have to put different blades in. But you have this thing on here lined up, and you make a cut first. Make a first cut, then you move it over and set it down on that edge and make a cut, and then you keep moving it down once at a time. But that means this hole, this piece, and this piece all have to be exactly the same dimension. And so I always...
Because you're making a cut, then slotting that cut into just to hold it stable so that you don't lose measurement as you continue going down.
Something like that, yeah.
Interesting.
That looks
Hey, you.
good.
Did you take my car keys?
I did.
How am I supposed to get you a charger without car keys?
You come in and you yell at me about it, and then I give them to you.
Jesse Samuel Anderson, why did you take my car keys? Whose car is it?
It's my car.
My car.
Our car?
My car. You're lucky it was unlocked.
We share cars.
No.
Thank you.
You have to go somewhere to get it?
Hmm?
You
No.
have to go somewhere to get the charger?
No, I got it for you.
No, she just apparently wanted to throw a fit.
I was spent 5
Well, I
minutes
was just
looking.
going to say, you can't go get one if you have to go get one, because I have you blocked in so you can't leave.
Yeah, he did. He purposely blocked us in so we can't leave anymore. No, he takes my car keys and doesn't tell me where he... I was looking in the house for them for like 5 minutes. Pat can tell you. I looked in the bathroom where I had changed. I looked on the chair I was sitting. I looked on the counter.
We're learning about joints.
Cool. It looks like fun.
Now, be careful about what you're learning about.
We're learning about box dovetail joints.
Okay, that's better to say it that way. We don't want any joints in here.
Dovetail box joints.
Dovetail, they're not dovetail joints. It's either a dovetail joint or a box joint.
Boxed
They don't go-
dovetails.
No.
What got you started woodworking and
I don't remember. I don't know what got me started with woodworking, because when I was in second grade, I was trying to make things.
were you?
Yeah. I've always liked to work with wood for some reason. I like the simplicity of shaker styles and designs, and early American style. I guess it's something to do with a nostalgic feeling about liking to have things that are sort of old-fashioned. And that's one reason why I like to use a lot of hand tools and collect old hand tools, such as the ones hanging over the stove, the big saw and things like that. Okay, now I've got the jig in there. Now I have to change the blade. I'm just checking the width on the blades. I have to fasten the blades back on.
We had to set in new blades that are cut a little bit wider, so that you can
They're
match
cut to
it.
an exact 1/8 inch, so they'll cut an 1/8 inch groove. So if I put 2 on, then I should be getting close to 1/4 inch.
Because then you're matching it up with this tool that we went over that's going to be the map for our box cut.
And I need another insert in the saw, because this one isn't quite... maybe this one will work. Let me check. No, that's a little too close.
Grandpa's about to do a test cut of the box cut, which he says is easier than a dovetail, so something I should learn, but you need a table saw to do it. And what that is it links two pieces together. So let's go ahead and see. What he's fine-tuning here is a cut just like this, which is supposed to then slot in and create a box cut. Now, you said it's a little tight, Grandpa. What do you do to fix it being a bit tight?
I'm taking the outside, the right side blade off, and I'm going to put a little tiny piece of paper spacer in there.
So just to widen it a little bit without it being too squeezed?
Cut, right.
Okay. So that's why you do a test cut before you start working on your actual wood, which is a mistake I would make if I didn't have him telling me better. So we just did the second test cut. He added just a tiny, how big was the piece of paper you added?
7/1000.
7/1000ths of a piece of paper to just change the spacing. And now we get a joint that slides in and fits together just like that. Which is what we're looking for because, like Grandpa was saying, the strength of this type of joint is how much wood surface you have connected and glued together. So now I think we're going to be cutting the actual box and hopefully everything goes well. Which, based off of this, it should.
Make sure I've got it right. Okay. Is this noise a problem? One thing you need to be real careful of when you're making this cut is make sure you get the place you started here. You don't want to turn it you don't want to turn it that way and start, because then they would be offset. It wouldn't be lined up right. You have to make sure you get this cut. When you turn it over to cut it, you make sure you cut it this way, not that way.
I assume you've made that mistake a few times?
I have made that mistake, yes. Now these two pieces will be, cut that one some more, but they will be not next to each other, but they'll be at opposite sides. I'm just stopping to check and make sure everything's getting cut. But yeah, okay, so you see how that slipped together nicely. So I'm pretty sure I've got the spacing and everything right now. Fits. Hey, it went together.
It's looking more and more like a box.
Yep. I'm sorry. The next thing would be sanding it on the inside.
Okay.
If you want it really a fine smooth job on the inside.
So let's see how this box over here fits inside of it.
Just drop the lid down here and see how it works.
Because this is our theory, right? That pops in there.
Yeah, it's got a little extra space, but...
And then we have a slide lid and a slide bottom.
We haven't got that cut made yet, that's right. We'll have to make the cuts for that before we glue anything together.
And we'll have a nice wooden box to keep our game in.
Now another thing we'll have to do, I just realized, one of these pieces is going to have to be cut a little thinner so that the lid will slide over top of it.
Okay.
You can't have a slide top without one of those pieces being cut down.
You want to go ahead and make those cuts?
Let's go ahead and make those cuts.
The goal today is to get all the cutting work done so that I can take it home, sand it, glue it together, and have a finished product. And then, if you all are enjoying this series, come back to start learning and working on a few more projects. So, with that, let's make it back out to the wood shop and go ahead and get the day started. Now, I can't express how deeply I wish I'd started this process earlier, because there's so much that I just don't know, so much that I need to learn along the way, and it's going to require quite a few trips in order to get my feet underneath me, because grandfather's slowing down a little bit. It's harder for him to stay out of the shop, for an entire day like he used to. And the amount of knowledge he has when it comes to shaker furniture, box making, is really, really just incredible. It's enough that I would have to spend the next 20 years of my life learning my own skill and trade, which would be a fun game to do.
Turn the radio off.
Yeah, so you can talk.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
So I can show you how to do woodworking. Yeah, right.
So Grandpa's currently trying to organize his shop, which does sound like a bit of a joke. Is that accurate?
I have no comment.
No comment at all. So what else? You've done a little bit of work on the box while I was gone for Thanksgiving. What have you done, and what else do we need to do?
Mostly what I did was cut the grooves for the top and the bottom, and then try to get the top and bottom the right size.
And that's because we're using a thin but fancy piece of plywood in order to seal the top or seal the bottom, and then go ahead and slide in and out of the top.
Right, and I'm trying to cut those to exactly the right size. It's pretty tricky because it might be a 32nd of an inch difference that makes the top fit right or not, and I can show you what I mean right here.
He was talking about the blades needing to be very specifically specific.
Yeah, but notice how that's not going together quite right. There's a gap in there. You can see that that's not supposed to be there. Well, it's there because the bottom is a little too long in that one dimension. Okay, that way, but not this way. So I've got to take it apart. That's the front. And this is the...
And these are the grooves that you went ahead and cut in.
Right.
And it looks like you've done them on the top and the bottom.
Yes.
And then you've shortened this front piece so that the front area has a place where it can slide in and out.
Right.
So we slid the top in for a test, and then you cut off this little piece
Right.
to make it so that it was able to slide in there, but then you're going to reattach that little piece?
I'm going to glue it onto the top so that it slides out with the top, because this top's going to be cut flush with right there, and you wouldn't be able to grab the top if you didn't have something here.
And we could even, if we wanted to get fancy down the road, put magnets on the inside, little drill bit magnets, and they would connect.
There's enough friction here that I don't think you'd need that. Now I'll move it over to the workbench. So.
This is the glue that you're using.
Tight bond number 1.
Original wood glue. Now you're making something to
So I get
brush
just a
it out
little
of.
tiny bit of glue. Because this is one of those places where you don't want to get too much or it'll squeeze out. And we're probably going to have to glue this on and then just let it set for a while.
Okay. Now you don't need much for it to be a good glue.
No, don't need a whole lot.
Then after you
How did I do
cut...
that? How did I get glue down there?
No idea how you got glue down there. I think it was from the lid.
Oh, yeah.
You set it down. So after we get this top glued on and we cut that seam so that it can pull in and out, what else still needs to be done on the box?
Well, obviously we're going to need to glue the corners, sand it all, then glue the corners, then maybe varnish it, whatever kind of a finish you want on it. If you want to do any wood burning or some sort of decorating on it with the name of the game or something like that.
Cool.
You would probably do any decorating like that before you put the the finish on.
Okay.
Wood burning, carving, or whatever you do with it.
Okay, so we're getting close. Stand though. So I am heading back to Cleveland, Ohio with this, right? A nearly finished, but not nearly finished box. We have a sliding door, we have unglued frames, we have a bottom, and we have a top. Now I have a list of all the things you told me that I need to get to try to finish this up before we come back. That includes a whole series of sandpaper, a engineer's 90-degree angle to make sure we're flush, some good quality clamps to squeeze it together, the true, what is it, true, your glue.
The glue is Tide Bond.
Tide Bond, number one. And then we are also going to be doing a little bit of a varnish and a little bit of an oil.
Not a varnish.
What,
You don't want to put a varnish on
Not a
it.
varnish. A
Varnish.
stain, an oil.
You could put a stain on it and then an oil finish, but if you get the Watco, you can get it in different. The stain and the oil is all mixed together.
Okay.
But it would be just as good to just leave. I mean, a natural stain will darken it a little bit.
Oh yeah, I'll just do a natural. So the plan is for me to hop back to the studio, get this finished up, which you're probably seeing in this video, and then we're going to come back in about a month, right after the holidays, to start cutting 3 or 4 other boxes.
Sounds good to me.
So I'll get the dimensions, and maybe if this video is out early enough, have you all vote on one of the boxes that we start working on. So, Grandpa doesn't like this part. If you notice, he's always walking away from me every time I point the camera at him. But yeah, so I'll go, hopefully you'll see me in studio now, finishing this up. So I'm getting set up to do the sanding for the box back down here, my grandpa's workshop, to finish up this little guy that we started on. And we have to go down all the way to 180 because Grandma's the finisher. And Grandpa doesn't always do that, but she said if you don't get into the habit, you'll get in trouble. So we're gonna go down. We gotta stay on the inside so we can glue up the outside and then finish the box up tomorrow. So we went through the process of sanding this little guy here, and we are now going to have to do the glue up so that we can just finish it off, put the oil, put the wax, and actually have a completed project. Now, if you've watched to this point, you might be curious to know what this is over here. Well, we're working on a very, let's say, avian-themed box that's going to be in the next episode. So you get a little bit of a sneak peek. And we're making a different type of box this time, so there's some more things to learn.
Well, this spins.
Yep, spin that around. And I'm just getting it on just a little bit on each side here.
Correct. Just a little bit.
Do I care about the back end of it at all?
What do you mean the back end?
Like the flat part inside here, actually.
No, that's... It's just on the sides of each of those. The reason for that is end grain does not hold very well with the glue.
Okay.
It's face grain or side grain together, but not end grain.
Okay. How do we lay the bottom?
The bottom?
Yep.
Is it sanded?
So, no.
It's okay.
But I'm not too worried about it. And
It goes in this slot.
well, we also want to get this little piece, a little bit of glue in here first.
Well,
Remember?
you don't need any glue in that. You won't.
No?
It'll be trapped in there.
Okay, so we don't need to glue it at all?
No.
All right, so that little piece of wood that we had to create a bit of a thicker section here because the bottom was a little bit janky. Okay.
Do you remember where it goes? Which side?
This, I think it went on either side. So
Okay.
now we just squeeze this in. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you don't need to glue the bottom ever.
No.
Would you ever glue the bottom?
No.
No.
Why isn't it going in there?
Well, I think it is. It's just maybe not quite as tight as we want it. Let's see. So we've got this one clamped up.
It's not quite square.
Well, it's a little bowed because of the clamps that we have on it, Grandpa.
Let's tighten that clamp then. The clamps got it together. They don't need to stay on there. They just got it squoze. Squeeze.
That's the word.
Squozing together. Now that's pretty square now. Yeah. Okay.
All right, so we've done the, let's see if I can get the light here. We've done the next important step for our little box here. We've glued it together, got some seams on there, and then after, it looks like the bottom here is bowing out just a bit, Grandpa, so check on that. After this dries, we'll go through and we'll clean it up, we'll sand it, oil it, finish it, and we should have a first box. So, we're getting there. Note to self, do not have the camera around the sanding location because it is now covered in dust. But this is looking really good. It's getting smooth. I need to break the corners a little bit so they're not sharp, but we have sanded it down to 160, 220, some small degree of grit. And yeah, I'm really excited. I think the first box is nearly done. Well, oiling and all that. And I have to figure out how I'm going to label these boxes so that when they're on the shelf, you can see what games they are. I could do brass, like name tags. I could do wood burning. I could do carving. There's a lot of options. I just got to like experiment with which ones I like and start narrowing into a skill or a profession. All right, so an update on this little guy here, which is the box I am finishing up while I work on some other things. We added little pegs to the corners just to fill in the gaps that were there. We're about ready to do the last pass of sanding, and then we're ready to finish it up. So this little one has, where is it? Has a slide top, which just goes in and out just like that. And it should fit air, land, and sea perfectly. I'm leaving the wood shop and we are on to the next stage of this, which is going to be meeting with Grandma, who doesn't want to be on camera at the moment, but meeting with Grandma to go ahead and do the kind of final polish, and also to check to see if she gets approval for the sanding I did, which I'm sure I won't. She has been the person who has refined Grandpa's projects over the years, doing the oiling, the waxing, the detail sanding, and requiring him to go down to 220 grit instead of 180 or higher, which is where he would prefer to stay. So let's go check and see what she thinks. So I have you over my grandma's shoulder here because, like I said, we're not sticking her on camera, but she actually approved of this. It wasn't perfect, right? But you said it was decent.
Yeah.
What do we do now? What's the next step that we do when it comes to finishing these products?
Well, you've got it well sanded and the corners rounded off a little so it looks good. And next we need to put a finish on it.
Okay.
If you don't finish them, then they just get they get finger marks and all sorts of things.
And a finish is going to be like this Danish oil. It's just a wipe on. And what does the finish do?
It soaks into the wood and helps preserve it and gives a harder coating on the outside also.
Okay. Now, you don't want to sand or do any other work after you've already put the finish on, right? The only next thing you do is really a wax on top to seal it even more. Is that correct?
Yeah. You can put a wax on, or you don't have to. So I'm making sure all the hand sanding is finished up. And then we get a vacuum cleaner and make sure we get all the dust out of the corners as much as we can. And that doesn't get it all, wipe it with a rag. Just get the rest of the dust out.
So you want it to be super clean. And you don't want to do this in a dusty area, right? Because it has to dry for a little bit of time.
Right.
How long does it need to dry before you do anything else?
Actually, with the oil finish, the dust isn't as much a problem when it's drying and all that, because you rub it dry as you can after it sits and you get it all on and everything. You let it soak in, you put a little more on, and then you let it dry a little more, and then you rub it. And you can sand it too at that point with some sandpaper that
Is that dry wet
it's a
sandpaper?
yeah, it's actually for metal,
Okay.
but it works for boxes. We didn't know it was for metal when we started using it, but it's great.
Nice.
Of course, it with the oil is wet, and so that works.
All right. Well, let's finish up this project.
Okay, you're gonna put lots of oil on there.
So just
It
everywhere?
soaks everywhere, yeah.
This
but
stuff
try
here?
to do one side at a time, so
Okay.
so it doesn't have.
Should I start on the inside or?
You can start on the inside, yeah.
Okay. And it doesn't matter how much I do at the moment.
No, you
Okay.
just want to soak it so it has lots to soak in. It'll soak into the wood,
Okay.
and then you'll take that little brush to get the crack corners and the cracks. It's hard to get it with a rag.
And go do this again? Mm-hmm. Now you prefer a natural look to everything, right?
Right.
Do you ever do darker stains or?
I have in the past, but it never turns out as nice, I don't think.
Because one of the things that this type of wood, poplar, is advertised as is being a wood that looks a lot like cherry or others if you stain it dark. But you've never found that looks just as not as good?
No, I don't like the cherry stain
No.
on anything.
There you have it. This is a finished product, and the first one in a whole series. Now, this works perfectly fine. The slide comes off, the game is stored inside, and we now have the first step in a series of boxes. The goal for this series is to learn, right? The craftsmanship, the art, and slowly upgrade my entire collection. Now, eventually, I want to start doing handmade dovetails and start upgrading every step of the way. Also doing my own custom inserts, resizing the box if the game demands it, and of course eventually getting a laser etcher to mark the front, back, and sides just like the original box would be. So, but it has to start somewhere. And I think this is a pretty good start to what will be, I hope, a really fascinating series. By the end of this, I'd love to have 50 or 100 of my own personal games reboxed and kind of a documentation of the process and the progress that I've made. Starting with a little rough around the edges, box cut, all the way up to fancy handmade, hand-cut, laser etched, custom designed, and so on and so forth. If you're excited about this series, make sure you hit the subscribe button or leave a comment. Also, let me know what games you'd like to see built into something new. I'm really excited about having this first one done. And of course, ultimately, the main goal is just to be able to spend some time with my grandfather and learn a skill along the way. And I'm really grateful I have the chance to do that. Thank you for being here. Whatever the case, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing. Get out and play some games. We'll see you next time. Thank you.